because in the totality of things, as we look at, I've got to keep a roof over everybody's head, I've got to keep everybody fed, and I've got to keep everybody clothed. We're 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 negating the priority of, because like the pumpkin patch, we don't want to go. We know it's going to be miserable. We think it's going to be a terrible time. We're not putting the value back into the relationships that are at home because we're trying to boost our value elsewhere.
Right.
Not because work's more important, but because I know if I walk in the house and I don't have a significant other, I probably had one at some point and ruined that possibility. But if you put that pedestal of work and you get work up here, you feel like you're going to be able to walk in one day and be like, hey, baby, I got 100 grand in the bank. Let's pay all these bills up for 6 months and let's relax. And the reality of it is, we're never looking at, until somebody slaps you in the face, you're never looking at what you're losing by trying to gain somewhere else.
Right.
And I say this respectfully to every employment, business, company, everything. You're replaceable. There's no way to word that. And any boss, any manager, any supervisor will tell you, you are replaceable. You die today, 2 weeks from now, there's somebody in your spot. 48 hours from now, your job is listed online. It's not a jab at the company. They've got to continue on.
Right.
You're gone. It doesn't matter. But when you're in your mid-30s to 40s, your wife has said, I don't even know who you are anymore. I want a divorce. Your kids are going, Daddy, who's daddy? Is that the guy that sends mommy a paycheck every month? Your home life is just shot. So now all you have is work. So now you've just gone headfirst into work because you're like, well, I've lost the wife, I've lost the kids, and you've got a couple of different avenues you can go down. You either end up as the 50, 60-year-old man living in a shotgun shack with 2 chihuahuas and hoping you can buy a used vehicle because you got child support arrears from God knows how long because you never had the ability to pay it because child support's a robbery in itself.
I think the worst part of that scenario you just explained was the chihuahuas.
Yeah, I'll never own one of those. I hate those dogs.
Worst dog ever.
Agreed. I think it's an oversized cat. But then you have the other side of that where the guy goes, oh, freedom. I don't have an old lady at home. I don't have to worry about these kids all the time. So I'm gonna go buy the boat. I'm gonna go buy the fast car, the nice truck, or the whatever. And you get yourself down another rabbit hole where it's like, I've just gone stupid. So now I've got to work even more and lose out even more, which is where the importance of the conversation comes from. Where and I know we've had that talk with you and Brittany, where you sat down thinking this is going to be an end-all, be-all conversation, and realized afterwards that she had a lot more empathy for you in your circumstances to understand where you're coming from. And I've got to give her credit. I really do, because I've been there for 2 different styles of conversations that the two of you have had. Granted, one of them is when we were dying trying to put a roof up in the middle of July of all your terrible ideas. And he's frustrated, he's hot, he's tired, he's angry, and I don't remember what sparked it. But there was a lash out where it was real awkward for me, but I was just like, man, I'm just going to keep working.
It doesn't sound like me.
100%. But his wife's response was, I mean, they were tit for tat. It was even. But when we came off that roof and he cooled down and he got some cool water in his belly, their tone was different. It was, babe, where you want to go to lunch? And so I've also been a part of the other side of the conversations where you guys were having a very serious conversation. And she has, even though I love her to death and she has a little bit of a scatterbrain sometimes, their conversation, you and Brittany's conversations are more emotionally inept than a lot of people actually understand. And honestly, I think that's why you guys have lasted so long, is that sometimes you shut up long enough to listen to her. You give me the look about, this is the dumbest.
I don't know if you know what inept means.
It's okay, so I'm gonna call her out. So she had that idea for the kitchen, and we were standing in my kitchen as she was describing like what she wanted to do for the kitchen. And I know the face you were giving me was, this is the stupidest idea, but we're gonna do it. We're going to do it because this is her idea and this is what she wants, and I'm going to do what's going to make her happy, so that when it's all done, if it sucks, I can be like, told you that was stupid. But if it looks great, I can be like, that was a good idea, babe. I'm really glad I had it, because that's who you are.
Right.
But that's the stick we're getting at, is in everything we're getting at, communication is key, but in the same breath that you got to have the conversations where you're lacking when you're putting so much value into work, you're not putting value into home. Take a break and go have a conversation with your spouse, whether you're the male or female, whoever's working the most, whoever's doing this, providing and all this extra overtime, because this is not just men only. Granted, we come from a male perspective, but stop for a moment before your boss goes, hey, I need 2 for overtime this weekend. Stop. Call your wife. Call your husband. Hey, you got a minute? This is what's going on. I think if I do this, that'll put us X amount of dollars over on the paycheck. Maybe we can get caught up on something, or maybe we can have a little extra, go out to dinner. Let them tell you if that's worth your time.
Right.
Let them have a say in your time, because a lot of people don't understand that relationships nowadays, not even nowadays, relationships have always and should always be a balance of our time. This whole new mentality that society has brought on, that I'm going to get in this relationship, but I don't have to be an equal part, or I want to be an individual still, or I want to be able to go out and do X, Y, and Z. You're killing your relationship,
Right?
because you're not. And we're going down a rabbit hole. I apologize, but you're not having an open communication with your spouse who's killing themselves at work.
Well, again, it goes into the argument that I've had several times, because I don't learn the first 17 times.
Fact.
Is I would, hey, I need 2 for overtime. It wasn't mandatory. It was just they wanted
just
to have
need 2, yeah.
They had it in the budget. They want to have 2 extra people working. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. I didn't call her, didn't do anything. Well,
Right.
And so when hey, surprise, I got work this weekend or whatever. Well, she had plans.
Right.
Now she's got to cancel them plans. And my thing was, well, yeah, but that's going to be an extra, couple $100 that be in the bank account. And she didn't care about that, because hey, they were barely getting paid, but they were getting paid.
Right.
But she had plans. She had things that she wanted to do with me, and the other side of that is, so okay, you volunteer for overtime or whatever. Whoever keeps notifying the IRS that I work overtime, I hope they get 3 flat tires, like just
All 3.
one
All
good
3.
tire that stays
Yeah.
good, just
That
as
way
a
insurance
middle
doesn't
finger.
cover it.
Right.
Yeah.
But man, I remember the
I hope it's not even the
it was
driving
one of the
tire.
first checks that I had at I was in college. I was working at night shifts at a warehouse, and I think I went in like 3 extra days. So I'm expecting this amount, and it threw me in a new tax bracket that gave me a heart attack. Where I was like, bro, I could have just stayed home. Like 2 of these days, I could have just stayed at home, and it wouldn't have mattered,
Right.
And so some government official somewhere got those dollars. You're welcome.
I'm gonna tag on to that. If you, because I've seen this a couple of times, and some of the stuff that Mike and I bring up is from memes or social media platforms or little videos, TikToks, things like that we've seen. And so one of the things that I keep seeing is about couples that ask their significant other for permission to go out with friends or whatever. I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I don't think that messaging your significant other and saying, hey, so-and-so want to go out and do this, you good with that? I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
I really don't. I think that's a great communicative skill set to have, that you can, and every significant other I've ever had, I tell them all, I have no problem being the bad guy to your friends.
Right.
Like, if you don't want to go,
Blame it on me.
Yeah, all day. Hey, now my husband said I can't
I'm
do it.
antisocial. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
My husband said no, he's just not a good idea. But specifically gearing this towards wives, I'm all about if you want to make plans and go out and do stuff and everything else. I'm good with it. Call me first, all right? I don't have a significant other, but one day, hopefully, God willing, if I ever have one, call me first, because here's why. Same thing like we talked about the last episode, where I'm coming home from work and I've already planned out everything I'm going to do. If I don't have to work and I know, like, hey, I've got the next 3 days off, my 3 days are planned in my head. So if you made plans 2 days before and you didn't tell me the plans, we ain't doing it. You better come at me with a solid bribe as to why we're doing it, because I've already planned. I'm not wearing pants on this day.
Right.
I might put shorts on this day. Maybe I'll mow the lawn Sunday. We'll see how this goes out.
So, to get this back on topic.
Yeah, sorry.
back
We
on
went,
track,
boom, rabbit hole.
let's start looking at what mental ramifications do you think, or stress, whatever, issues do you think could come up with, let's say a guy's working 6 12-hour shifts a day? Again, that's not uncommon for where we work.
Right.
And whether it's voluntarily doing it, just to put money in the bank, or he's doing it, to make ends meet because he's upside down,
Right.
and trying, drowning in debt. I noticed one of the things that we run into a lot is, at least in our line of work, is do a traffic stop, and I'm not the biggest traffic stop guy out
No,
there. I don't like writing tickets.
Hate it.
I never have. But it's part of the job, and I'll catch myself a lot of times. I'll see somebody, hey, they're doing 20 or 25, 30 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Right.
And that'll get the hairs poking up. They might have rolled through a stop sign or something like that, and so you go pull them over, and you walk up, and it's your hey, this is the reasons I pulled you over, and I get a lot of it. Hey man, I'm just trying to make it home, and
Right.
and that's everybody's thing is, hey, I'm just trying to make it home. I'm just trying to get to work or whatever, and I notice I'll look in the whether it's late, typically we work nights, so we catch people coming home from work not going in, and it'll be a guy covered in dirt and grime and
Right.
mud and mildew,
Plant uniform
and
on.
just absolutely just like you could smell him from the back of the car because he's been sweating all day,
day.
And that's one aspect of it where you're like, all right, obviously he's been working. But when you're talking to him and you're paying attention to body language and things like that, the way that he's wincing as he's grabbing his wallet because his neck or his back hurts,
His face
and,
is just drained of everything.
you see fatigue that's visible on his body, and we look at that, and typically I'm going to be honest with you, I cut a lot of them guys' brakes because it's like I've been in that spot where hey, I'm just trying to get home, but what I found for me was when I was working hours like that, I was like, all right. If I get home 15 minutes early, because if I was driving an hour and a half to work each day, one way, and I was like, all right,
uphill,
if I do
in the snow,
in the snow in South Louisiana, but if I would speed a little bit, I could get there 15, 20 minutes early,
right,
and that's 15 to 20 minutes that I could take a longer shower or just relax a little bit more, and it was always about me, as far as, hey, I could rest a little bit more. I might be able to get a little bit more sleep. I could go to bed a little bit earlier, get ready for the next shift that's going to beat me in the face tomorrow. So it was always something where, just preparing for the next grueling day, that's going to take place. And it was never, let me, it'll be, let me get home early and spend, maybe cook dinner today or whatever, help her out. But what I found was it never really made a difference, and it caused me to, one, you drive more erratically, you're not being as safe, but also you're not getting into the science of fatigue and everything else, reactionary speeds and all this other stuff. You're just not on point. Like we talked about in the beginning of the episode was, hey, you're tired and everything. Simple tasks are more difficult. Driving is the same way. So you're sitting here trying to fly home because you want to be home and you're tired. I get it. I 100% I understand it. But at the same time, you're becoming a safety issue to, one, yourself, and to two, everybody else on the road.
Right.
But also your family needs you to get at home. And that's one of the things I learned in law enforcement. And right in the beginning, still green as grass. I'm going to go. Between me and this can-do attitude, we'll be like Wyatt Earp and save the world.
Right.
Captain America might come get an autograph or something like that. It was you got this misconception that, hey, you become a cop, you drive fast, get to the call, save the world, right?
Right.
And you see with the newer guys where they always get counseled or coached or written up or whatever
that machismo
for
to drive fast.
driving like an absolute jackass.
Right.
It's, hey, somebody stubbed their toe, let me go lights and sirens at 95 miles an hour down through the school
residential school zone.
And when I first started, one of the older guys pulled me to the side. He said, "Look," he said, "you can't help if you don't make it there. You can have all the good intentions in the world, and if you don't make it to the scene, you can't do anything to help. And that is the exact same in home life, where if you don't make it home, you can't help. You can have all the great intentions. Hey, I'm trying to get a better house, trying to get a better car,
Right.
trying to put the kids in a better school, trying to do all this stuff
But
for
it
the
ain't worth
family.
nothing if you don't make it.
But if you don't make it home, it's not worth it. And that's the other side of that is it's not just physically. You got to make it
Right.
home mentally, and that's where we lose it because we get so focused on everything else. I got this going on this project going on at work, and all this other stuff. So when you are at home, again, you're just planning for the next grueling day. That's
Right.
going to beat you in the face the next day. That you're not sitting there and actually being present, and so you're
Right.
not at home anymore.
And that's kind of a couple caveats I want to touch on is those of you that know us, you know that Mike and I are in law enforcement, and that's not what we hang our hats on. That's not the premise of who we are. But this is an excellent example of how that career choice actually benefits us in this topic in this conversation, because a lot of people don't really understand that as law enforcement officers, we are human, and we recognize and we can sympathize with the people in some of these circumstances where, again, we hate writing tickets because most of us have to go to court on our days off and stuff like that, and we're not trying to go down that rabbit hole or anything like that, or tell you how to get out of a ticket or anything like that. That's not who we are. But we recognize that danger that you put yourself in
Right.
by overworking yourself and getting to a point, because we've been there, we've done it. We have done the traffic stop at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. You got the plant worker that you just know, and we empathize with it all day because we've been there, we've done that. We've been that hard-headed employer or employee that's trying to make all the ends meet and be better for our families and more suitable for them. And so as a small caveat, probably one of the only ones we'll ever do, can't say the only one, but one of, guys, take a break and don't tax yourself to the point that you've got to see us at 2:30 in the morning to tell you, hey, you're tired.
Right.
You know you're tired because you're living it day to day. You're not paying attention. You're running stop signs. You're speeding. You're doing whatever to get home, and that's why we kind of want to bring in the other aspects of it as far as your mental health, because it's not just physical fatigue. It's not
Right.
just I'm ragged and I'm tired. And I I can tell you from a personal experience, and actually Mike was involved in it. I was seeing a young lady from out of state. Been in love with this girl since I was 10 years old, and she had planned out this elaborate trip to come from where she was at to where we are here in Louisiana and surprise me. And Mike and his wife, they had gone to pick her up at the airport, and I'm not a snitch. So I had no idea that they were coming. I didn't know that they were going to, surprise me or anything else. I was so exhausted with work and everything else. I think I was on like an 8-day stretch at that point.
I don't know. You were doing a lot of whining, so that sounds about right.
Yeah, I was tired. I was beat down, and when she walked in the door with this big elaborate surprise, and you got to understand, like, this girl had flown all day and had been trying to deceive me. Now I knew something was up, I just didn't know to the extent. But she was just trying to surprise me with this visit, and when I tell you I royally screwed up that surprise, because here she walks in the door and I'm so exhausted, I can't even pretend to be happy that she's there, because it's like I just want to go to bed. I don't want, like I can bypass the fact that, I know now that I've got to stay up a little bit later because you've just flown all day to surprise me. But to her, I screwed up because she did this big elaborate thing, and my expression and the way that I went about it was awesome. Can we go to bed now? Like, just let me just shoot you in the foot. And I ruined an entire weekend
Right.
with this person that I can honestly say is the one person that I should never have ruined that with, because, like I said, chasing this girl since I was 10. But it's because I put myself in a position that work was more important than my home life and my family and the things that mattered to me. And we as guys, we've got to ring it back in and get yourself into a position where you're comfortable telling your boss, I can't do this.
Right.
Like, hey, I will come in and I'll give you an extra day next week or at this time or whatever, but and not talking about on calls, okay? I'm talking about when they're like, hey, we need two for overtime
Right,
or whatever.
right. Not talking about the mandatory or hey,
Right. We're not
it's
talking
an
about
all
that.
hands on deck type thing. Or,
Right. We're talking about the just volunteering and taxing yourself that you've got to get comfortable with your supervisors, your bosses, your managers, and these people so that you can say to them, when they're like, hey, I need two for overtime. And they look at you because you're usually the guy who's like, put me in, coach.